at 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Roll call.
McKnight,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Roha,
Here.
Vogel,
Here.
Kinder.
Here. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment?
None.
Okay. Notice of executive session meeting?
No.
Approval of minutes, December 20th, 2022, EMS Town Hall. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roha,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. December 28th, 2022, regular meeting, motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roha,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Communications, sorry. Managers report?
Nothing.
Council subcommittee reports. Housing and economic development. Last meeting, we approved the rental licensing and inspection program, third reading. And this year we'll move on to something bigger and better. So, community engagement.
I was actually hoping to bring up in regards to housing and economic development, I'm hoping that council would be amenable to formally requesting updates from the Housing Authority on the status of the bedbug situation at Holland Towers, the condition of the elevators, the operation of the elevators, and where they stand with the formal acknowledgement of the residents' council. All of those things had come up to light in public. They were covered in the paper in the summer. And I would like to know where they stand. So wondering if council would be agreeable to make that formal request for updates from the authority.
Are those the only three things that came up? Do you know? Like, I know there, I just wasn't sure if there was more and if we could ask for anything else. If there were more items that needed to be addressed.
Those are the three that come to mind.
I'm having I am not remembering all of the things, but I just wanted to make sure if we're gonna ask, that we ask for everything that, you know what I mean, like we've been looking at. But I know I think that's a great idea.
So if I may, I do believe that there's a request for a conversation regarding a potential policy between the city and the Housing Authority regarding inspections, property maintenance inspections, and the manner in which requests can be made and in which we will fulfill them. So if we're going to be making a request there, maybe we can add, a request for a conversation regarding that as well. That could be helpful.
Yeah, I think that was something that came from staff in Housing Authority's request for our fire inspection, or fire department to do inspection. So that would be, I don't think that there's a policy in arrangement with them, so it would be forming one up.
A little too formal of language on my part. That might be more of a request on our part to enter into a more formalized practice for how that is going to occur.
Okay, so what's on the table is updates on those three things: bed bugs, elevators, acknowledgement of residents' council, and then also a solidified understanding of inspection practice. With fire department. We good with making the request?
I am, yeah. Now, did you want to do it, council makes a request, or the subcommittee? Because we're doing like subcommittee reports. I just wasn't sure how, like what you're proposing. If it's all council, I'm still, it was just under subcommittee as we
I
discussed.
think I'm asking council.
Okay.
That's just where it fits on our agenda.
Yeah, no,
It wasn't.
no, I get it.
I was also thinking, I think in terms of like in that area, things that are really concrete and definable, the other bug problems there, the trash, remember there was the trash
Oh, the
there
trash.
and the washers.
Coaches,
the roaches and the washers and dryers that were out. Those were two, like a couple of other things that were mentioned.
I knew there were a couple other things. I know the trash was
Infestation and then
Infestation, I guess, would be another.
maintenance of elevators and.
And then the trash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm a hard yes on that, absolutely.
Yeah. I can live with it.
And I think that their meeting is next Wednesday at 2. Is that when they meet at Holland Towers?
I think it's, I think it's a Monday, didn't we just look? We check on your, we just wrote it now.
Yeah,
I think it's a Monday
I think it is. Yeah, I read it, is it the second Monday? Does that sound right?
I mean, that's what it was on the calendar.
That's what it
we
is
got
on the
in
calendar.
January.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks,
Okay,
Katie.
so it's Monday
Yeah.
at 2?
Yes.
Okay, so either that request can be, and we can can we figure out of this meeting, like if folks are available to make that request in person versus a letter, or should we figure that out now?
What would you,
In the public meeting?
you suggest? Should we send a letter as a communication to the board, or?
I would suggest that whether you send somebody in person to deliver the letter or whether it should be in writing so that there's no miscommunication as to what
Okay.
requests that you have. And, I'm sure You know,
Well,
that can be-
you guys don't prepare the letter, I'd be.
that can be
happy to
put
go.
together for you and, if you want it sent or somebody wants to hand deliver, either way, it's appropriate.
Okay.
But we can coordinate outside this meeting who's able to go and hand deliver.
If nobody else is, we can email it.
Right on.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Autumn, for bringing that. And Tim. All right, communication, or community engagement, sorry.
No update, we had a town hall
Yeah,
a
we
few
forgot
meetings
to
ago, a few weeks ago, on EMS, is well attended and great. So thanks to staff for putting it together.
Finance?
A couple of items. Upon the sale of a couple of condominiums, the net proceeds of sale would be used to pay back the loan balance when the property was acquired. That's about $100,000. The balance, it's anticipated to be transferred to our real estate capital reserve fund. Also, last week, I bent the ear of our legislator for a couple of hours, talking about expanding authorities in Pennsylvania, instituting abilities for municipalities to possibly charge fire and EMS fees, and charging for tangible municipal services on all properties. In other words, there really is no difference between paying a gas bill, paying an electric bill, paying a water bill, paying insurance, and paying for fire protection. It's a tangible service that's provided. Also, we explored the idea of changes to the local service tax, whether that should be expanded, because it basically is not covering the needs of any municipality, not just ours. And finally, talking about wage tax differentials for people who maybe live in one city and work in another. That concludes my report for this evening.
That you had the conversation and
Yeah.
you've started a
We
conversation.
started the conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jim.
Great.
Old business discussion / motion 2023 ABC reappointments.
So as discussed at the December 28th meeting, because this is an adopted policy of council, we would have to apply the current policy, not any new moving forward policy, to those 7 individuals listed here. Therefore, this is a yes/no vote on reappointment for these 7 individuals before council.
And I just had a quick question. One individual was just put on, right, planning commission, right, because we just.
Yep. So he was filling out a term
I see.
that was left vacant, so this would be that term he was filling, this point of reappointment.
Okay. Is he the only one that's doing that?
Out of this slate, yes.
I just was confused there.
Yeah, there are others that are kind of in flux there, but out of the ones ahead in front of you, Kevin is the only one that only served a portion of a term.
Okay.
Could you guys clarify for me when, like, who is under the old policy? Like, so let's say, like Kevin, for example, if he was, well, you know, they were new, like the EAC people are, until their term is up, we would be using the old policy of just kind of rolling over? Or when does this new idea, does that make sense what I'm getting at? Is it?
The new policy is the next item on the agenda, so as soon as that is adopted,
Okay.
then the next time somebody is up, it would be under the new,
Okay,
under the
I
new
just,
policy.
thanks, that's what I needed to know, I couldn't figure out.
Which would then be 2024, right? Because nobody comes up other than,
They are either the December 31st or January 1st,
Yeah.
so it would be the end of this year.
Yeah. Great.
Are we looking to do these individually or as a group?
And that is at council's discretion, you can do it either way.
I move to reappoint as a slate, and I just do that, this is,
yeah,
what's in front of us?
I'm in agreement with that.
me too.
Yep.
So can I have a motion to reappoint the slate?
That's what I did.
I'll second.
Oh,
Okay,
that's-
sorry. First move,
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roja,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Discussion motion appointing council liaison to ABCs.
So due to the amendment of the appointment policy, it is the suggestion of staff and council, legal counsel, that individual council members, one is appointed to each ABC as a liaison. So that is what you have in front of you tonight for 18 ABCs, individually appointed council member to each one.
There are a couple of those that you really don't need to be acted upon because the Board of Health is city council.
And then I think there's 5 other ones that don't meet regularly.
And the mayor is a member of the committee for pension
Yeah.
by virtue of her office, and we don't have any appointment power over there. I've kind of served as a liaison, but I'm not a voting member or anything. There are probably some other ones, I'm not just coming up with them right now.
The other one would probably be blighted property review because
Yeah.
Jim, you sit on that.
That's the one.
What about, there's a couple that don't meet regularly, the Civil Service Commission?
You do still appoint folks to that, they do come up for terms of appointment and reappointment, so just out of an abundance of caution, it would likely be the suggestion that somebody is appointed, even if you aren't active.
Sure, I just, and these are ones that I just didn't see, because Gretchen and I actually just went through and looked at each one and when they meet, you know. And then the Code Appeal Board, that doesn't meet regularly. How often do these, like the Civil Service Board or Commission?
Civil Service Board probably meets 3 to 4 times a year.
Okay. Code Appeals Board?
Code Appeals maybe meets 1 time a year, if that.
Oh, only when
It's
there's,
like a
okay.
Yeah.
hearing board.
Mhm.
Log Cabin Preservation Committee?
Is defunct, so that doesn't actually, it hasn't been, it's not an active board anymore.
Are there
Who's
people
preserving
on
the
it?
log
Like,
cabin?
well, it would be the one at Bicentennial, wouldn't it? I'm assuming that's the one that we're
It
talking
is,
about.
yep. There is nobody actively serving on that board. It does not meet, and it has nobody appointed to it.
What happens if something happens to it? What happens if it needs something, like who,
Our
just
Public
us?
Works Department
Okay.
will take care of it, yeah.
What does Code Appeals actually do?
So the Uniform Construction Code requires that there be a local Board of Code Appeals in the event that somebody was to appeal a determination of the code official.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm wondering if some of these could be, for example, and again, we need input from the boards themselves. Isn't there a certain amount of overlap, say, between Shade Tree Commission and the Beautification Committee?
They,
There is, but they're also serving different functions right now. And there's one overlapping member too, I think.
But I'm wondering if they could reconcile and have all their functions combined and maybe consolidate. And there may be some other ones to
Well,
think about
like the
consolidating.
streetscape, like what is,
That would be another one.
So I think though the issue in front of us is these are the committees that exist. And just in order for us to be able to continue moving through the appointment policy
Right.
as we've adopted it, like when something
Right,
comes
no,
open,
no, no.
we need to have a liaison so that we can.
so are,
So I guess I'm just trying to, hopefully, can we do one, address one
right,
issue
well,
at a time?
I guess the question is if, you know, the log cabin preservation committee, we don't need to,
That's, yeah.
you know what I mean, like,
We
so.
can skip
For
over
someone who
that.
doesn't really wanna work very hard can take that.
Take that, okay. I just wasn't sure, like the streetscape, not, how often do they meet and are they a board?
They meet.
Are they active?
Okay.
They are, they
I
meet.
think the thing that feels maybe that we're kind of dancing around is like the expectation of a liaison. Is it purely to appoint, or is there an expectation to actually liaise with the committee? And so I think whether that's,
From a
should
staff
get to.
perspective, and it's entirely up to council how they want to handle it, but there's not an expectation that you attend those meetings on a regular basis. You're certainly free to do those, so you can, as a council member, attend any of these. But there's no set expectation for you to attend those things.
public can attend them too, because they're public.
And that's true.
How come the water authority isn't on there, the list?
That's a great question.
You're always welcome to
What-
come to our meetings.
Yeah, what list, I don't know what list you're looking at.
Well, they're just not on
There's
here.
18 boards, authorities and commissions on here.
But they're-
And
yeah.
so it's just
Oh.
not, it's just
It's
not.
just not listed.
Was it just missed?
It might have been.
Water authority and recreation authority need to be added.
I think
Recreation's on
All right,
here.
then water authority.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't know if it was like, well, they are
Right,
hands off or something. Okay.
so, again, the expectation is just, at the very minimum, a liaison would be the person who's gonna go through the interview process, review applications and go through the interview process when there's an opening.
So do you want
So
to
should we go through that tonight?
Yep, we'll go one by one, and someone can nominate or be selected to be that
Or
liaison
volunteer?
or volunteer.
And do we think that Board of Health and Pension and Log Cabin,
We can skip
we
over
can
this.
skip over those? So there's,
Blighted.
like, we should look at 3 each or so if we're looking at
Yes, so I
equitable
have
distribution.
15 then total.
Great, so, just to,
So then you'll
Distribute
nominate
the load.
for each one and then motion to
We'll
appoint
volunteer
that
for each
slate.
Yeah, I mean, just so we can get through this.
Yeah.
So there's, because there are no particular appointments that need to be made until December of next year, if you wanted to table this and come through and put down your selections and send them into staff and have staff kind of add you to the list and we can fill in the remainder later, we can do that. There's no great rush to make the liaisons this evening. The more important item is item C, which is the procedure. So if you want to go through and all volunteer tonight, we can get that done, or if not, we can do it.
Yeah, we do have a couple vacancies currently that will need to be filled. There was one individual who declined to be reappointed to the zoning hearing board, and we have a vacancy on the rec authority.
What's the timeline on that, Katie?
It's until we have a new policy in place.
So if it waited 2 weeks, it wouldn't be the end of the world?
Not at all.
okay, yeah, can we table and maybe like, can you put these in like a survey form and we can check the ones we're interested in or something? And then we can just divide and kind of review what we come up with next meeting. Is that good for you, Jim?
That works.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I can't ever hear Jim and sometimes he'll nod and then
I'm
You
fine.
can't hear his number, sorry.
All right, so we needed somebody to move to table that, right?
A motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion? Roll call?
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roha,
Aye?
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. So C, resolution amending appointment policy for the city of Meadville.
Correct. So this does include the edits that Autumn brought up last week, as well as the appointment of a liaison to do the interviews.
Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Anybody have questions? I hear
I don't think we tabled that. I,
reservations here.
yeah, no, I just, so the liaison and chair thing, so that's the best we can do.
There's,
I think the issue for me is like, putting one single and I recognize from a public meeting perspective why we need to do this, but putting one person, it's on that person then to come back with a recommendation, and it makes it a less collaborative process. I think that's my main concern.
So just so everybody's aware of what we're talking about, the concern here is that council is creating a committee that would meet outside of Sunshine and make a determination or recommendation for someone to appoint. To make that recommendation to council, the council would then appoint, if they wanted to accept that recommendation. So if we want to have a committee that would do this work, then we would need to have public meetings advertised in which to have that conversation. These would not be executive session interviews, because these are public appointments. These are not hiring employees. In order, if we didn't want to go through that process and have an official committee, what the recommendation was that the chairman of the authority, the staff liaison, and the appointed council liaison would all take a look at those people who applied for the position, including those people who would be up for renewal, and then make a recommendation. If there was a consensus candidate between those three recommendations, that consensus candidate would be presented to council as the recommended candidate from the three individuals that were doing that work. If there was not a consensus candidate that was created, then all three individuals would be sent up to council for the review and consideration at that point. That is the process that was put together so that we wouldn't have to have additional public meetings. If you want to go back to having a committee and have public meetings, we can absolutely do that. If you want to have a more collaborative process where you have additional members of council being involved. This largely comes out of the concern with the Sunshine Law in that the committees themselves, there's often a misperception that so long as you keep the committee under a quorum of council, then you don't have to worry about sunshine. That is incorrect. The Pennsylvania Sunshine Law says that it is a quorum of the committee that triggers the requirement that you have a sunshine advertised meeting, and not a quorum of council when you're dealing with that committee. So if you have a committee of 2 or a committee of 3, it's that quorum determination from the committee that triggers the sunshine obligation.
And you can't, one person isn't a committee, right? You do.
One person's not a committee.
Right, I just was gonna,
Yep.
gotcha.
as I have been processing this, and I walked in, right, like, and asked a million questions, and you were with your family, of course. I feel like we're on an edge here, and I feel like there's gotta be, I just want more people to be involved, you know what I mean, like, that's the whole point, is more people to be involved, otherwise it's like one person, you know.
If you want to have more people involved, that's
Friends.
absolutely fine. If
Right.
you want to have more collaboration, that's absolutely fine. It requires an advertised meeting. And the interviews to occur during that advertised meeting.
Right. Which I understand why that's not, right, like,
Dig it, yeah.
why that's maybe
Not the most efficient process.
difficult and not efficient if the process were done, all things remaining equal, and we just publicize them. Recognizing I could be opening a can of worms, I wonder, like, is there an opportunity to change the policy where it, like, something like an open interview is advertised, right? Where, like, this is the time slot where, like, if you're interested in, like that might be more feasible. than individual interviews being advertised, right? Here's the open interview time or something, right?
Yeah.
And if,
Yeah.
but
So-
that's, I mean, that's a whole other thing.
So if I could just for
Yeah.
plain devil's advocate regarding efficiency, today you approved 7 different appointments. Another part of the revised policy that was requested was that everyone who is up for renewal would have to reapply and be part of that.
Right.
So you would be looking at, if this year is an indicator of next year, you would be looking at, 7 or so during that time that you would have to, call in for the interview. And if you have a big open interview for that in a cow call style fashion, 5 minutes apiece, which would be light, that's a 35, 45-minute process just for the renewals.
How many did we do this year, Kim? Like 15?
Right.
We did, so we would have to set an agenda that would be advertised, we'd have to offer public comment. And so then, to Tim's point, they would be restricted to that policy.
So you're looking at a big chunk of time,
Right.
not to say that that's a bad thing, it's just you need to be committed to that if you're gonna do it.
Sure. Yeah, and I think just like going back to the purpose of this policy was just something that is standard and public, right? That
Right.
gives people, right, regardless of who you are, a chance to apply. So long as that remains true, I can, anyway, I can be persuaded. I think I am unclear on, you mentioned the consensus candidate, so, does that imply then that like the one representative of council, the one liaison from council, the chair, and did you say a third person?
This is
this
staff.
time? A staff person, okay.
Right.
They can't confer and talk to each other? And-
So so as to not be a committee,
Mhm.
because a committee would not just be a committee of council, a committee of council could be made up of individuals who are not on council. Then you would have those 3 individuals make their own 3 individual determinations, throw the names that they wanted to put forth out into the ether, so to speak, and, if you have 2 individuals who agree, then that name would move forward. If you had no individuals that would agree, then all 3 names would move forward.
One of the things that would concern me is that every time we institute a committee and another meeting, it involves additional staff time, additional advertising time, which means money, and additional time on the part of council. And going forward, frankly, that might deter some people from running for city council because they'd say, I have an economic need to earn my living, and I can't come in the middle of the day when staff's available for an interview. On the other hand, if the current policy that we have is only 2 years old. Prior to that, we had a much more global way of selecting, and it worked well. And the people who were on the committees served well, and many of them served almost as long ago as I had hair. And they've done a phenomenal job. So I guess I would say now we have a policy that is barely 2 years old and we're saying it doesn't work. If we act in haste, we will repent again at leisure and say a couple of years from now, this isn't working either. Okay. I'd say go back, scrap the policy and go back to the way we had been doing it. Or if you insist on having a policy, it needs to be well thought out, carefully crafted, and given due consideration, not in the heat of a moment and saying, gee, we want to get this done by 6:45. It's not going to happen.
To that, Jim, I will say that the global practice that was not a policy beforehand was purely just people appointing who they knew. And at least in my experience, it meant that a lot of people didn't even get the time of day. Like their interest to serve on an authority wasn't even acknowledged. So again, this standardizes. In my experience, like it's been my experience in these last 2 years that this policy has worked in that we've filled a lot of vacancies, and we've filled those vacancies with people who are new to serving in volunteer roles for the city, which I think is a good thing. I think we're refining it to make sure that it complies with things that it should comply with. But I think that overall, it as a policy is working. I'd be amenable with moving forward with the changes as they're presented here in this, in the revised policy.
I was there are a lot of like evening meetings, like 5:30, so maybe those council people, we could, go to, because I was actually going through like, oh, well, I probably, if I would not pick like a committee, an ABC that met in the evening just for the purpose of, I would probably want to attend some meetings, so I had a sense of what they're doing, so.
Are you talking about being a liaison?
Yeah, in terms of being
Okay.
a liaison. Yeah, so I'm just going back to like
Right.
this idea of like, I think it's worth a shot to give the liaison idea a try, I think it's for me, I feel like it gets people talking, because that's a thing for me that I know I talked with Marianne about not really understanding how the communication flows, like how do we get information from the ABCs, it's not real clear, and then she explained that each staff member has an ABC, and so that was really helpful. I think the more we talk, the better it is, and then, we can bring that and then act as a body, so I feel like this is a step in the right direction.
So that's in regard to liaison, so I think we're talking about
Yeah.
the are you? in favor
Yeah,
of
well,
the
I
policies
seems to be the
presented?
liaison structure is the issue about the policy. I mean, for me, I guess it goes back to
Gotcha. I think,
it ties to the policy.
Okay.
I think the policy, I think is a good idea, just because again, we have transparency, accountability, and hopefully some good, decent sustainability, my checklist, so,
And the amendments to the policy as they're presented to us,
yeah.
you're.
Those seeking reappointment will apply in accordance with the process listed above, like that addition, I think is, I'm in agreement with that statement. Sorry, I just jumped.
No, that's, I'm just gonna say that having a standardized policy is the best route, that appointing people just because you know them or they make so much money or they own something that and they're your kids and they have the same last name, is not the way that we should do things here, not in town, not here. So I think that this 2-year policy was a wonderful way to start, and things evolve, right, through time, and we get better, and it gets better, so just putting it out there that because we're evolving it, that it is failure, I don't think that's fair, and I don't accept it. What I do accept is to get new people into these roles, and the only way to do that is to standardize a policy and not make it that only our friends and our families are able to be a part of these ABCs, and that's what apparently the global situation has been in this town, and I think it's better that everybody get to apply and get the right attention, right? They all are on an equal playing field because we walk in the same door. So for me, we'll keep evolving this policy until it works for us and everybody has a fair chance. So that's just my 2 cents, and that's how I see this working. And I thank you, Tim, for looking into it as we are evolving these policies to make it so that everybody has a chance here in town, no matter how much they make or who they're related to. So, Larry, do you have anything?
No, I agree. I thought my concern is transparency and getting a standardized, so we're not, again, coming back, like Jim said, a couple of years changing things. But I think regardless which way we go, there's going to be some tweaking. Again, like I said, my big concern is making sure that everybody that wants to apply has the opportunity, and we go from there. That's what we ran on, and we continue to support this transparency.
Right.
People always have the right to apply, and in fact have applied. Again, I'm going back a number of years in the past experiences. a simple letter saying, I'm interested, is enough to get, and it doesn't have to be friends. I don't have any friends, I don't have any family, so I don't worry about them being appointed. But someone says, hey, I'm new in town, I'm interested, I have an interest in whatever it is, recreation or beautification or trees, whatever. Make your interest known and be glad to consider you. I'm just saying that we have documented that, or we have gotten such a involved policy that it is not working, and I'm not sure that a new policy is going to be any better, because you're actually tightening it up. You have people who are known quantities. We just appointed 7 of them. We have people who are known quantities and have served well. Why should they have to go through the entire reappointment process again, submitting credentials and all the rest of it? We know their credentials. Now, if you want to waste your time doing that, that's fine. If you want to waste advertising dollars on all these hearings, that's fine, except we have a big hole in the budget, and that's not making it any better.
Has a motion been made to approve the resolution? I move to approve the resolution.
Well, before I respond, I understand what you're saying, and I agree that it's, you know, it is going to be costly. So what if we couldn't make an amendment where the ones that are currently serving or their term is just expiring, like you said, we have that information. Do we need to vet them again, or is it just being?
That's on the table. That's what we're.
Yeah, I mean, just another option. I mean, if you're concerned with the strictures of this policy, you can change this to say, you still have everybody who's currently serving reapply, if that's the will of the council. But instead of having the 3 individuals perform this function of making names available, you could put a general call out for applications of interest of anybody who's interested to submit their resumes to council. The council gets all of them. And all of council would then, have to review them at their leisure and make an appointment when an opening is available. You don't have to have a great policy other than there's a database of individuals who are interested.
Right.
Get a letter, I'm interested to serve in any capacity that would become available. Great, you stick that in the file, and when an opening comes, you pull the name out and they get added into the list.
Yeah, I moved
There is a
approve the
motion on
resolution.
the table
Motion on
already.
the table.
I mean, yeah, there's a motion.
We already have a motion in a second.
Yeah,
Okay. Did we have a second?
yes.
Okay.
Just to address that, because I don't want to totally steamroll that. I do feel strongly about the policy for reasons that I can share. I mean,
It's fine, that's fine.
it's yeah. And I think it's worked well. It was developed by residents and a resident committee in iteration with staff, which to me is important. And I think is part of the evolution that you talked about. And I think it was brought up maybe at the last meeting that there's just been value in involving the chairs. I think the chairs from the committees expressed appreciation for being involved in the process too. So I wouldn't want to not include them in the process. So that's what I appreciate about the policy as it stands.
Truly an involved policy, right? Makes it so that we know what's going on. And I think a not involved policy and not involved council is how we have mismanaged money in the past. So I think that having involved policies and having an involved council is the only way that we can move Meadville forward. We can't blanket things and then vote on them and then come back and we've spent more money than we knew. We never read anything. We didn't get involved in things. So I think we should, if we're done discussing, roll call.
McKnight,
I'm undecided.
Is that
It'd be an abstention.
Okay.
Myers,
aye?
Rohan,
No,
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Okay, so we are on D now. Discussion 2023 council priorities, right?
Correct. So in front of you, you have a list of the 2022 council priorities in the form of a status update. So they're color coded. Blue is ongoing priorities. Red, priorities that have had no recent updates, and green, priorities that have been completed. I think what staff is looking for is how you want us to prioritize the priorities that are remaining from 2022, and also how you want to give staff your new priorities, if there are any.
I think the things that, we do have a list of things that we wanted to move forward with. If everybody wants to put that out there, which would be what, Autumn, do you wanna start, just start?
I
know
had
you
just
sent the
talked to
email.
you
Yeah,
about
yeah.
some of my priorities. Building on what, some of the ongoing stuff and what hasn't been accomplished from last year, including some of the STAMP priorities. For me, would be developing a housing plan focused on affordability, which I think can include a data-driven blight reduction strategy that's coming out of the STAMP. That's a leftover piece. I don't know that that made it into our 2022 priorities, but that's a lingering thing from the STAMP. Strategic management planning. The land bank item, right, was a priority that was just open-ended. I think that could be included under a housing plan as well. And as well as a plan for housing rehab and weatherization, which I think is a newer priority. Do you want a conversation on practice, like how you want to go through the practice for this?
Yes, so I guess what we were looking for is what, if council could send us as staff, what the priorities are, and then we can compile those. And I guess if there's a consensus to still continue with what is ongoing on the 2022 priority list, we will also include that, send that out to council, and we can work through fleshing out.
Is your intention to have a survey and we rank them?
Similarly to what happened last year, yes.
Do we have a study session next week?
Yes.
Do we have an agenda for it?
No, because the next item is something that I would like to put on that agenda, but we can certainly discuss that.
So a study session, we can also use to do some of these priorities, and when will you send that count, or that survey type thing out, like last year?
Once we
What
get
is like what kind of timeline are we trying to put? I know Autumn has a list, I have a list of things that
As soon as you get the list to us, we can have that done within the day, and send that out. So Monday at the latest, we could have the survey, probably sent out, if you can get us your priorities by Friday.
Great. I would hope that we could build in a process or time through conversation to also refine, right? So last year we had a list of 20 plus items that were all priorities, and potentially having a shorter list of shared priorities would be helpful. So if we have a list that's all of our priorities compiled, and then we have time during an upcoming study session or something to refine them.
We can
Maybe
definitely plan on doing at least half of the study session next week,
Okay.
dedicated to refining those priorities.
And then if we get our list of priorities to you Friday of this week, that turnaround time is okay to then have the full list compiled for Wednesday and.
Yep.
And then once you refine it, we can then send the survey out to prioritize the refined list.
Or do you mean like the prioritized tool, or do you mean you just mean for us to prioritize them?
Does that sound good for everybody?
Yep.
Yep.
So we get our priorities to you Friday. Right. Yes, that's our task. Okay.
Okay, discussion emergency medical services for the city.
So we had the town hall on December 20th to discuss, or to hear from Eric Henry, owner of Meadville Ambulance, as well as Evan Kardosh, the union president for the firefighters. I would, given some new information, Eric shared, which I shared with council via email, some additional information. There is a budget, Autumn had asked for a budget and plan from the EMS commission that apparently is available. So I would maybe ask if council is amenable to table this discussion until I can provide that data to you, so you can have a different or better picture of what that might look like.
Did you review the plan?
I have not seen it yet.
So
I
a
don't-
plan exists.
I spoke with Eric about an hour and a half ago, and it does. It apparently exists, yes.
So if there's no motion, we don't have to table it, we can just by
Yeah, it's just
consensus.
Correct. It's not an action item on the agenda, it's just a discussion item, so the
Okay.
senator discussion there'll be more discussion later.
There'll be more discussion.
That's it.
Yeah.
When do we expect to see the plan?
I will follow up with Eric tomorrow. He was going to a meeting, which is why he's not able to attend tonight, and to see if I can provide that plan. Ideally, for next week's study session, that would be available to council. That would be the ideal plan.
Great. And the plan, again, just to be clear, is a plan for a county-wide ambulance authority
Correct.
that would provide that service
That's correct.
from a public entity across the county.
Through the
More or less
county,
is-
a public county. and-
That's our understanding without having seen the plan, right? That's at least the kind of pitch we've gotten.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Okay. And we had asked for a plan because we've been told that that's something in the works without
Future.
any kind of tangible information. So
Correct.
when we get that tangible information, we can make a more informed decision. So I'm amenable to just continuing the conversation next week, although hopefully it won't go so much longer,
Correct.
because I know that our fire department wants to know which direction.
Well, we need to figure it out for the city, right? Like, we need to make sure that we are doing what's best for the people who live here, so hopefully we're not, dragging our feet on something as important as that. Yeah, I'm down for doing another this study session.
Yeah.
That'll be next Wednesday at noon.
The study session is next Wednesday at noon, yes. I will keep council updated on the status of me receiving that plan. But the priorities will be on the study session, so there will be a meeting.
Okay.
Regardless.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's probably not in your control, but the earlier we can get that plan, the better, so that we can read it.
Yeah.
For what it is.
All right, resolution delegation of CDBG invoice signing authority.
Resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville designating Mayor Jamie Kinder and Deputy Mayor Larry McKnight as signing authority for community development block grant invoices.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion?
This is the annual delegation of signing authority for various CDBG items, invoices, any documents that council may need to sign.
Roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roha,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Resolution appointment to French Creek Council of Governments.
Resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville appointing the French Creek Council of Governments delegate and alternates for 2023.
Okay. So now we need to decide who's gonna be on it, I think
So, someone who is actually appointed as the liaison and then an alternate in case that liaison is not able to attend.
And who,
Autumn.
It's me, and I've never been able to attend. I will say that, with regret.
Okay.
It's Thursday, like quarterly Thursdays at 11 or something. It's not a time that ends up working for me often. I'll keep trying, but it would, if anyone else is willing
I
to
was
serve.
the alternate,
Yeah.
so, but I didn't know that you could.
I know, well, and I think half the time I wasn't getting the emails until after, like, the emails were slow to come through or something, and so I didn't get the emails until after, so then I had not given you any notice, but, anyway, so that's not on you. That's on
so
me.
I guess what we're asking is, are you saying you still want to be it, or should we?
No.
Okay.
I think
I was gonna nominate you anyway.
Right.
No, I would be willing. I think we should be more involved with the French Creek Council of
Truly,
Governments than
truly.
we have been, and certainly I have not been a good liaison in that sense. So if anyone thinks they can be a stronger liaison that we need, that's great.
Well, I'd be happy to do it. Go ahead.
The last line of the resolution points out that the bylaws at the COG have changed and that you're able to appoint staff as alternates in the event that the electeds can't make it. So you would only really need one appointment from an elected official as your delegate, and then appoint your either your city manager or your assistant city manager as an alternate if you'd
Who
like.
goes now? Who goes now? Do we have a staff member that goes anyway? No? Nobody goes.
We like you sometimes miss the emails.
I'm
That
just gonna
feels
say
like
it's
that's something we
that's
should
not-
work out, yeah.
So I'd be happy to do it. And then, do we want to nominate, as I'm being directed to point at Katie, or does somebody up here?
To be fair, last year, both of us were appointed alternates, so.
Yeah, it appears that you could do both, and that way you can get, in the event that one can't make it, the other could.
Okay, does somebody on council want to be a second, an alternate?
I can be the alternative, yeah, but it has to be staff is the new.
doesn't have to
No,
be.
No, it doesn't have to be, so can we, okay, let's work this out here. I will go, if I can't, Gretchen and Katie, somebody between you guys, or, Gretchen and Katie, or Jamie
All
and
three of us
Katie,
can
or-
also
or-
go.
Okay.
There's no limit to the number that can attend.
Oh,
Sounds like a Girl Scout.
It appears the recommendation is for the mayor to be the appointee, and the alternates to include Ms. Myers, Ms. Wickard, and Ms. Manano as availability allows.
Okay, yeah,
Is that the
that
recommendation?
sounds great. If that's okay, if that's,
That works.
So
Okay.
moved.
okay,
Second.
okay, discussion and roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roha,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Okay, and so, public comment on non-agenda items?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Council member statements, Joe?
Well, thank you. A couple of things. A note with sadness the passing of Ed Ridgway, one of our firefighters. He passed away a few days ago after many years of service to the city. We extend condolences to his family. And it's Orthodox Christmas, I believe tomorrow or Friday, so to our Orthodox friends, Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Joe. Gretchen?
I guess the only statement I have is I'm looking forward to setting new priorities and working together to this coming year.
Autumn?
Happy New Year. Hope folks got time to rest a little bit. I'm, excited for this year for setting priorities. Just to finish my thoughts, housing plan, strengthening our participatory practices, and a countywide reassessment are what I'm particularly excited to look at in 2023.
Barry?
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to working on our priorities. Something like Autumn brought up, the problem at Holland Towers, there's another problem I feel that the City Council, I'm quite sure is aware of, but I want to address and let City Council know the concern that I'm receiving from families, moms, dads, about the busing situation. Because it's not only affected the students who have to wait sometimes an hour, hour and a half, and this weather's getting colder. It's affected families who have to change their work schedules to provide transportation for their kids. And I'm encouraging all parents that are involved and are suffering from this to be at the January 23rd meeting to let our school board know that the problems that they're facing. And also, your tax dollars are at work here, but the company is not providing the services. They need to be held accountable, and being that they are working with our children, we're paying our tax dollars, I feel that it was my duty to let council know that there is a big concern about what is happening and if there's anything city council can do, even if it's just a letter of questioning or support.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have heard, and that would be something that parents need to be writing letters to the school board. That's like not us. But it is, you know, the school board, their superintendent, they have ways to communicate with those elected officials like they get to communicate with us. So I would hope that they are vocal and in what they want, what they expect from their school board, right? And they hired that company, so I would make sure that they understand how to get a hold of those people, and we are happy to know, right? Like, because what affects our people affect our children and everything. I did want to make sure that I point out that it is a new year. Super excited that I got to spend my last year with the people in this room and the people in this town, and how when I look back, right, on my year, and I'm sure all of us can say it wasn't easy, right? We made a lot of new friends and had some really great support and had some real opposition. It wasn't easy, but I know for a fact that I would not trade the people that I've met and gotten close to and been able to speak with. I wouldn't trade that for anything. And the people who I sit up here with, I think that we all should take a breath and really appreciate all of the work that has gone in this year and the things that have gotten done. And it is exciting to see the way that Meadville is moving now, right? So I want everybody to just understand how much I appreciate them and how much this city council supports the people who work here and live here and choose to be in our town, right? We've got some tough decisions to make, but all of them have every single resident that lives here. We take that into consideration, and we value each person, and we want to hear from each person, and we want them to come to these meetings, not because, you know, we are just saying that, but we actually want you guys in the seats, and we want to hear from you. So please keep telling us what you expect from us. Please keep letting us know what your needs are, because we want to make sure that you're in our decisions that we're making. And with that being said, I think that 2023 is our year, and it's gonna get better each day, a better Meadville every day, and every year. So
moved.
So moved. Let's adjourn this meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
You're so moved. Can I have a second? And discussion? Roll.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Romo,
Aye.
Vogel, Kinder.
Aye.
For 3 minutes.